right? You substitute the x values into the original equation. It's very important. Substitute the x values into the original equations to find the y coordinates of the turning points, right? Like you did with the quadratic one. Remember, first you had x is equals to minus b over 2a. It means you managed to have the x value at the turning points. And then immediately after that, now you took that x value, then you substitute it in the original equations, now to have the y coordinates of the turning points. Right? You do exactly the same here. After you have solved the x, you'll have the value of x, and now you take the x value, and then you substitute it into the original equation to get the y coordinates of the turning points, of course, which is very, very important. Right, and then from here now, you can also state the nature of the turning point. Is this the maximum turning point or is it the minimum turning point? Of course, you'll remember if the value of a, if the value of a is greater than 0, of course, we'll need to have the maximum turning points first and then the minimum turning points thereafter. But if a is less than 0 there, you'll have the minimum turning points, and thereafter you have what? You have the maximum turning points. Of course, I think it's very, very important, really, before you can determine the nature of the turning points, just look at the value of a there. What is the coefficient of a? Is it a positive or is it negative? Right. I think, boys and girls, you are following here, and thereafter, after these two now, you can now be able to do what? You can now be able to draw a smooth curve of what? Of a cubic functions. Remember, I didn't say a smooth curve of a quadratic name, a smooth curve of a cubic functions, which is very, very important. Right now, and then of course, right after you have sketched the graph, but maybe okay, let us focus on the first three bullet first. Let us focus on the first three bullet first. Which one is that one that I'm referring to here? I'm referring to number 1, x and what? X and the y intercept, right? Very important. X and the y intercept, that is the first one. And then the second one, that is the turning points. Of course, it's very important. And of course, with these two information that we are having here, now we can be able to do what? To sketch a smooth curve, right? Now we can be able to sketch a smooth curve of a cubic functions, which is of course very, very, very important. Right now, let us take one example. Let us take one example before we talk of what? Before we talk of the point of inflections, as yes, how to find the point of the inflections. Right now, we are going now to take one examples here to see if really what we are talking about here, we will be able to do what? We will be able to apply. Right now, here is the functions here. Our functions is f at x is equals to what? F at x is equals to x squared minus 4 x to the power of 3 minus 4x squared plus 4x. Right now, when we look at these functions here, how many terms do we have? We have 3 terms. Most of the time, we only have 3 terms only when we have a quadratic what? Quadratic equation or quadratic functions. But what is important is you must remember when we are talking about the cubic functions, what is it that it makes these functions or this equation to be the cubic? We just look at the degree, the exponents there. If it's exponent 3, then we know that this is the cubic functions. Of course, right now. Okay, let us start with the first one. Of course, I can now start with what? I can now start with the y-intercept, right? I can now start with the y-intercept. How do we determine the y-intercept? Then we let x to be 0. We let x to be 0. This is the easiest one to start with. No, it's the easiest one to start with. It means everything here, wherever we see x, we substitute it by 0. That is a 0 to the power of 3 minus 4 times 0 squared plus 4 times what? Times 0. And then now you can see that the y-intercept there, it's 0. It means this graph, this function will pass through the x-axis, through the x-axis at the origin. In fact, it will touch the y at origin. Right. Now we have the y-intercept. Now let us look at the x-intercept. Let us look at the x-intercept. Right. How do we determine the x-intercept? of course, you let y to be 0. Right, let us do that one to see what's going to happen here. Of course, that will be 0 is equals to x to the power of 3 minus 4x squared and then plus 4x. Good. Now look at this one now. We have now the cubic equation, right? You see how equations are important, boys and girls. Equations are very, very important because if you really don't understand the equations, of course, now, believe me, you're not going to be able to sketch all these functions. No, you're not going to be able to sketch all these functions. That is why it's very important to make sure that you master the equations. Good. Now here, y-intercept there, x-intercept, y is 0. Right now, we have 3 terms here. What do we do now? First thing that you must look at is what? Common factor, right? First of all, check if you have common factor. That is the first step that you must take. And then if there is no common factor, check if you can group the terms. If you are unable to group the terms, now then you can go now to what? To a factor theorem. Right. Now let us start here now. Do we have a common factor here? Yes, you are right. The common factor there is what? The common factor is x. Now we are taking x out. Name. We are taking x out. What is it that we are left with now? We are left with what? X squared. Yes, x squared minus 4x, of course, and then plus what? Plus 4. Right. Okay, we have x squared minus 4x plus 4, and then we have x outside there. Please, boys and girls, it's very important. Make sure that immediately once you have taken out the common factor, just say x times x squared to see if you get x to the power of 3, and then x multiplied by minus 4x, it should give you minus 4x squared, and then x multiplied by positive 4, it must give you a positive 4x, right? And now from here, where do we go now? Of course, now we want to factorize this one. Let us see if we can have the factors of the brackets now. X squared minus 4x plus 4. What are the factors here? We start with x squared. The factors there will be x multiplied by x. Of course, that will be x squared. Now, what are the factors of 4? What are the factors of 4? Factors of 4, of course, is what? It's 1 multiplied by what? 1 multiplied by 4. That is the first one, 1 multiplied by 4. And then the other one will be what? 2 multiplied by 2. Not 4 there. 2 multiplied by 2. Of course, between these two, you must choose the one that when you add, then it gives you what? It gives you 4 because you have a plus 4 there. If it's a plus, it means it's either you have a negative times negative or you have a positive times a positive. Right now, if the same are the same, then it means you are going to add there. You are going to add those terms or those numbers, right? Okay, now, which factors must we take? 1 times 4 or 2 times 2? Of course, we cannot take 1 times 4 because immediately when you take 1 times 4, we are going to get 5 when we add the 2, right? But when you take 2 times 2, then it will give us 4. But when you take 2 plus 2, then the answer there is 4. Then it means we take a 2 there, we take a 2 there. Now the question now is, what is the sign now? Of course, it will be negative times negative, which would give us minus 4x, and negative 2 times negative 2 would give us what? A positive 4. That's good. And therefore, from here, we know that now you can say, therefore, now x is equals to 0 or x is equals to a positive 2. That's good. Now, boys and girls, now we have the x as well as what? We have the x and the y-intercept. Right. Now, what are the coordinates of this point here? Of course, you must also remember that at this point, x is 0, y is also 0. Then what about this one here? Yes, this one as well. X is 0, y is 0. What about this one here? X2, then y is 0. It means it's on the, means it's on the x-axis. Right. Right, boys and girls, I think now you are happy with the first part of the x and the y-intercept. Right. Let us now go to the second one.